अथ pratyaya-parīkṣā nāma prathamaṁ prakaraṇam.
अथ pratyaya-parīkṣā nāma prathamaṁ prakaraṇam. And so, chapter 1, named Exploration of Causal Grounds.
न svato nāpi parato न dvābhyāṁ nāpya ahetutaḥ utpannā jātu vidyante bhāvāḥ kva-cana ke-cana.
Na svato nāpi parato na dvābhyāṁ nāpya ahetutaḥ utpannā jātu vidyante bhāvāḥ kva-cana ke-cana. Neither from self, nor from others, nor from both, nor also from no cause, have any things at all ever arisen anywhere.
न हि svabhāvo bhāvānāṁ pratyayādiṣu vidyate avidyamāne svabhāve parabhāvo न vidyate.
Nahi svabhāvo bhāvānāṁ pratyayādiṣu vidyate avidyamāne svabhāve parabhāvo na vidyate. For the self-existence of things is not found among causes or anywhere else. Where intrinsic existence is not found, extrinsic existence is not found.
catvāraḥ pratyaya hetus tālambanam-anantaram tathaiva-adhipateyaṁ ca pratyayo nasti pancamaha.
Catvāraḥ pratyaya hetur arambanam anantaram tathaiva-adhipateyaṁ ca pratyayo nasti pancamaha. There are 4 cornerstones of causation: the root cause, the objective support, the gapless, and it being exactly so, this, the dominant condition.
kriya na pratyayavati na pratyayavati kriya pratyaya na kriyavantah kriyavantascha santyuta.
Kriya na pratyayavati na pratyayavati kriya pratyaya na kriyavanta kriyavantascha santyuta. Action has got nothing to do with causes, nor is action lacking in causes, nor have causes got nothing to do with action. They have indeed got everything to do with action.
Utpadyate pratityeman iti me pratyayah kila yavan-utpadyata ime tavanna pratyayah katham.
Utpadyate pratityeman iti me pratyayah kila yavan-utpadyata ime tavanna pratyayah katham. Because it arises depending on them, they really are causes. Insofar as action does not arise, how can they not be non-causes?
Naiva sato naiva satah pratyayorthasya yujyate asatah pratyayah kasya satascha pratyayena kim.
Naiva sato naiva sataha pratyayortasya yujyate asataha pratyaya kasya satascha pratyayena kim. A cause is not workable for an object, either a real and present one or a non-existent one. Of what non-existent object is there a cause? And to the real and present, what use is a cause?
न सन्ना सन्न सदसन् धर्मो निर्वर्तते यदा कथं निर्वर्तको हेतुर् एवं सति हि युज्यते.
Nasanna sanna sadasan dharmo nirvartate yada katam nirvartako hetur evam sati hi yujyate. For when beyond the existent, beyond the non-existent, beyond existence and non-existence, a dharma is happening, how is it workable in such a situation that there is a root cause causing it to happen?
अनालम्बन एवायं सन्धर्मा उपदिश्यते अथानालम्बने धर्मे उत आलम्बनं पुनः.
Anarambana evayam sandharma upadishyate atanarambane dharme kuta arambanam punaha. This real and present dharma one is taught is utterly beyond objective support. What purpose then, when a dharma is beyond objective support, does objective support still serve?
अनुत्पन्नेषु धर्मेषु निरोधो नोपपद्यते नानन्तरमतो युक्तं निरुद्धे प्रत्ययश्च कः.
Anutpanneshu dharmeshu nirodho nopapadyate nanantaramato yuktam nirodhe pratyayascha. When dharmas are not arisen, termination is not possible. On those grounds, the gapless is not workable. And where termination has prevailed, what cause is there?
bhāvānāṁ nihi svabhāvānāṁ न सत्ता विद्यते यतः सतीदमस्मिन् भवति एतन्नैवोपपद्यते.
Bhāvānāṁ nisvabhāvānāṁ na satta vidyate yataha satidam asmin bhavati tietannaivopapadyate. Where the actuality is not found of freedom of things from self-existence, it is not at all possible to say, this being so, that is.
न च अभ्यस्तसमस्तेषु प्रत्ययेष्वस्ति तत्फलं प्रत्ययेभ्यः कथं तच्च भवेन्न प्रत्ययेषु यत्.
Nachavyasta samasteshu pratyayeshvasti tatphalam pratyayebhya katam tacha bhavenna pratyayeshu yat. When that effect does not exist in causes, separately or in combination, then how can that which is not in causes come to exist from causes?
अथा सदपि तत्तेभ्यः प्रत्ययेभ्यः प्रवर्तते अप्रत्ययेभ्योऽपि कस्मात् phalam nābhipravartate.
Atasadapi tattebhyaha pratyayebhyaha pravartate phalama pratyayebhyopi kasman nābhipravartate. Or if that effect, despite not existing, does emerge from those causes, why does it not come forth even from non-causes?
Phalam ca pratyayamayam pratyayāsca swayammayah phalamasvamayebhyo yat tat pratyayamayam katham.
Phalam ca pratyayamayam pratyayāsca svayammayah phalamasvamayebhyo yat tat pratyayamayam katham. Or if the effect is made from causes, while causes are not self-made, how, from causes that are not self-made, can there be that effect which is made from causes?
Tasman na pratyayamayam na pratyayamayam phalam samvidyate phalabhāvat pratyayā kutaha.
Tasman na pratyayamayam phalam samvidyate phalabhāvat pratyayā kutaha. On these grounds, an effect made from causes or from non-causes is not found. In the absence of an effect, how are there causes and non-causes? So the title of this chapter is Pratyayā, and Pratyayā means literally what things go back to. So I've translated the chapter title Causal Grounds. It's usually translated as conditions, but conditions generally suggest something more external, whereas pratyaya includes the meaning of belief. Perhaps you could say the most internal thing there is. So it includes the meaning of a cause, as when people fight in a good cause. So conditions is somewhat misleading or too partial. Something to do with causation is a better translation of pratyaya. So then the question is, what does everything go back to? And the gist of the chapter is the causal grounds of everything are not self-existing things as conceived in the mind of the realist opponent. Rather, pratyaya, the causal grounds, causes, have got everything to do with action. So among causes as self-existing real things, and among everything else, the self-existence of things is not found. That is stated so clearly in the first 5 verses. The more you study MMK, you realise he's really just stated the thesis extremely clearly in those first 5 verses. But having said that, within the first 5 verses, you've got verse 3, which seems deliberately ambiguous to me. The centre of the ambiguity is the question: is this Nāgārjuna speaking, or is it the opponent speaking? When I was preparing my draft translation of this chapter, I put so, for example, if we look at chapter 24, the first 6 verses are very evidently the words of an opponent, which Nāgārjuna in the rest of the chapter subverts. So the opponent saying, if everything were empty, then such and such a consequence would follow. And Nāgārjuna turns it around and says, if everything was not empty, then a lot of bad consequences would follow. So that's a definite pattern in MMKs. You have the opponent speaking and Nāgārjuna refusing the opponent's idea. And in that case, I put the opponent's verse in red font. So in this chapter, does verse 3 go in red font or black font? And it seems to me, it reminds me of Asvaghosha's style of expression, because on the surface, it's the opponent saying there are definitely four causes. And he seems to be saying in such a way that he's saying they're real self-existing non-empty causes, which of course would be wrong. But below the surface, I think Nāgārjuna might be using the convenient fiction of four causes to point us to deeper understanding of what needs to be understood. So on one level, I think it has to do with four vestibular reflexes. I see a connection to the four vestibular reflexes, which in turn are associated with four Alexander directions, namely to let the neck be free, to let the head go forward and up, to let the back lengthen and widen, while sending the knees forwards and away. And the fourth direction, which kind of completes everything in the same way that crawling on the hands and knees integrates everything for a baby. The fourth direction, which is to do with the inhibition of the cat-sit reflex, which enables a baby to crawl. When that direction becomes a real thing, sending the knees forwards and away, everything, there's a sense of integration of the top and bottom of oneself. And I think that certainly was what the Buddha was experiencing, among other things, when he sat under the Bodhi tree. So how does one translate then the difficult phrase pratyayādiṣu, and it being exactly so, this dominant condition? I've translated it in the end as an attempt to cover both bases. So the dominant condition is one of 24 conditions listed in the Pali Abhidharma. So on the surface, the dominant condition is the idea of a commentator who hasn't really understood the deeper meaning of emptiness. The commentator thinks there actually are 24 separable kinds of causes. So on the opponent, on the surface, we can use that translation, the dominant condition, because the dominant condition is the translation that will be given in the Pali English dictionary, for example, of adipata. Now, adipata, I think, is Nāgārjuna's own choice of words, but it refers to what's called in the Pali Sutras, I forget what it is in Pali, but the dominant condition. But because of the ambiguity, having reflected on it, it occurred to me it's quite fortunate the word condition in English covers the meaning of an indirect cause, an external cause, but it also covers the meaning of a state. And adipata, the ta of adipata, means a state or condition. So if I translated it as this, the dominant condition, it actually does sort of cover both bases, which is to say, it covers the possibility that this is the words of an opponent who believes in a dominant condition, as if it were a separable, self-existing thing, and it also hints at the state of the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, sending his knees forwards and away, having complete integration, no gap between left and right and top and bottom of the body. So in conclusion about this chapter, I'd like to point out a very profound and somewhat bitter irony. What this effort that I'm doing now goes back to is the teaching of Gudo Nishijima Sensei, who back in the early 1990s sent me by post the Teach Yourself Sanskrit by Michael Coulson and the text of MMK in a book by Kenneth Inada. So he, as strongly as he could, he pointed me in the direction of Nāgārjuna's Sanskrit, intuiting that we needed to go back. We needed to go back to the source. And he was right in that intuition. And I'm saying that when we go back to the source, what I find in it is this understanding about integration of two sides of the selves and the top and bottom of the self, which is the dominant condition. And so this chapter, as I've understood it, can be taken as complete confirmation of Gudo Nishijima's understanding of Master Dogen Shobogenzo, that it's got everything to do with action. It all goes back to action. That is the very clear affirmation in verses 4 and 5 of this chapter. Utpannā pratyayādiṣu iti me pratyayā kila. Because action springs up depending on them, these really are causal grounds. So what Nāgārjuna is interested in is the causal grounds of action. And when we study, really study, not by reading books, but by getting to the bottom of what it means to sit upright, action has got everything to do with these vestibular reflexes. And the fourth one, again, it's called the symmetrical tonic neck reflex in child development or neurophysiology. When that's inhibited, that is a condition of dominance. It's a condition where the top and the bottom are not taking sides against each other, and neither are the left and the right taking sides against each other. When we're badly coordinated, it's like there's a battle going on within the self at a physical level, not a psychological level, but a physical level. The two sides are not harmonized with each other, and the top and bottom are sort of taking sides against each other. So when Master Dogen said Jijo Ipen, his first instructions on coming back from China, when he wrote his instructions for Zazen, he said the secret of Zazen was in Japanese Jijo Ipen. Ji means naturally, Jo means become or realize, Ipen means one piece. So naturally to become one piece, very fundamental to that is what we study in the Alexander work. The back lengthening and widening means that you're not all twisted in a poor coordination of the two sides of the self. And knees forwards and away means the legs are not pulling on the pelvis and knocking everything out of sync. Now the irony here is that when I started studying the Alexander technique, I knew for sure that my teacher's instruction about right posture was working completely against that state of, let's say, the dominant condition. Because when I was sitting quite relaxed in the dojo in 1983, when I was 23, I'd been on a run at lunch. After lunch, I went on a run, and I was sitting there. Bead of sweat were on me. I felt very cool. I was in a relaxed posture, and so he didn't like the look of that. So he put his hands on my chin there and pulled my chin back to a degree which astonished me. It was must have been about 6 inches. He pulled the chin back, so then my chest went forward and my lower back went forward. And so I thought, oh crikey, what I felt to be a good posture was obviously totally wrong, and this is the right thing, kind of militaristic pulling the chin back. And of course the truth was that the posture I'd been sitting in was a result of all the efforts I made playing rugby and doing karate over the years to build up quite good coordination. You can't play rugby well or do karate well if the two sides are not well integrated and the top and bottom are not well integrated. So I'd spent my life at the first 23 years, despite having certain vestibular issues that run in the family, which make development less than perfect. I'd sort of deliberately overcome those underlying issues by playing rugby and training in karate. So at that point, when I was 23, my teacher, by doing this, he completely threw me out. And so I practiced sitting like this until it began to feel right, sticking the lower back forward and pulling. It's not even good to demonstrate it, pulling the chin back. So the Alexander technique, I sat like that for another 10 years before I realised definitely that there's no future in that. So the Alexander technique then restored me to go in the right direction with the directions: let the neck be free, not stiffening the neck like that. Let the neck be free to let the head go forward and up, to let the back lengthen and widen, sending the knees forwards and away. So there you have it. It's like in that's is it Full Metal Jacket, the movie where the captain calls in the Air Force to bomb his own position. I've been feeling like that for 20 years now. In order to clarify what my understanding of what the Buddha's teaching is, as expressed by Nāgārjuna in this chapter, the primary thing I'm doing is saying where my teacher got it right, everything goes back to action. Where he got it wrong, he didn't understand the difference between action, kriya, karma, and samskara, samskaraha, doings. When you sit as he was taught to sit by Master Causal when he was a young man, Master Causal, who had learned about good posture, so-called, in the parade grounds of Japan during the Sino-Japanese War, etc. That was doings. He learned. Master Causal taught in his younger days. He taught people not to sit as the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree, but to sit as the Japanese officers and men stood in the parade grounds. Not by allowing uprightness, but by doing militaristic uptightness. Okay, that was my teacher's big mistake, traceable back to Master Causal wrong instruction. And as further confirmation of that, when I was in Japan, I visited Master Tsunemasa Abe, who was like a grandson to Master Causal. Master Causal used to go back in the New Year's holidays, because he didn't have his own family. He used to go back and stay with Abe Sensei's family. He was a very good friend of Abe Sensei's father. So Abe Sensei knew Master Causal in his old age better than anybody. And right at the end of his life, Master Causal himself realised that he'd been doing too much in his efforts to have right posture. And so after Zazen retreats, Abe Sensei would hold the oshiburi, the warm flannel, on Master Causal's neck, because he had real problems with a painful stiff neck. And so Master Abe used to tell me, he used to say in Japanese, ningen ga kibaru, ningen ga kibaru. Ningen means human beings, and kibaru means make they strain themselves. Human beings strain ourselves. Okay, so that's the recognition that Master Kodo had at the end of his life. But the way I was taught by Nishijima Sensei was the way Master Kodo taught at the beginning of his efforts, which was all about doing. So we need to understand that that effort to get right posture by doing something, it goes back, it's grounded in ignorance, not real understanding of the human condition. It's grounded in the ignorant idea that I can enforce good posture on myself. And the relation with this chapter again is that if there was such a thing as good posture, then that would make sense to make an effort to grasp it. But there is no such thing as right posture. So this is why Alexander used to say, there's no such thing as a right position, but there is a right direction. So that's precisely what this chapter is about. What action goes back to is understanding of the right direction. To understand the right direction, to understand what it is to go in the right direction, might be impossible actually. But what we can be sure about is the wrong direction, the wrong teaching, the wrong instruction. So my father, for example, in many ways, talking about taking sides against oneself, I've had a lot of struggles in life because my mother encouraged me and my brother to take her side against our father. And that was a very pernicious thing for her to do, because I, anyway, very like my father. So to take sides against my father is to take sides against myself. And that's taking sides against yourself is not wise or good for health. Those words came to me in the process of doing this, going through this chapter. So my father is very far from being a perfect person, but he does have one or two redeeming features. And one of them, he's a very good detective, and he's very good detecting wrongdoing. Which the bad side of that, he's very critical of self and others. But the good side of it is that to spot wrongdoing and to be able to give negative feedback is actually the most valuable thing there is if it's done skillfully and with compassion. Now, neither me nor my father have ever been told that we were skillful and compassionate in delivering negative feedback. And so I think that's why I haven't, like say in the Alexander technique, both my wife and I are Alexander technique teachers. And often I would take new students and then pass them temporarily on to my wife when I came to France to practice. And when I came back then to England, they would invariably want to carry on having Alexander lessons with my wife and not with me. And so part of the reason for that, reflecting on it, is that I'd upset people by my unskillful and uncompassionate delivering of negative feedback. The point is, though, that if people are big enough to be able to take the negative feedback, what I'm offering here is something very valuable. People need to know, just like in Jewish history, the Jews have kept going forward and kept on an upward path. They kept going forward and up, primarily because when they fucked up, they went back in all humility before God, and they recognised they went wrong. They'd acted so as not to please God. And so they went back. And where did we go wrong? the same thing needs to happen, certainly among Japanese Zen Buddhists. People need to go back and realise that everything's gone wrong. And the perfect example of it is my teacher's wrong instruction to me doing that. So we need to deepen our understanding of what it is to stop ignorance, what it is to sit in such a way that ignorance is stopped. So that requires a lot of what my Alexander technique teacher Nelly Benor would describe as not that. Instead of putting your bullshit little opinions on Facebook and having people who don't know the score all say like, which is a waste of time. People need to find teachers who do know the score and will tell them, no, not that. It's no use having our crappy opinions affirmed by people who don't understand the Buddha's teaching. You need to find teachers who do have deeper understanding of the Buddha's teaching and will say, no, you're wrong. That's just your view and your opinion to be abandoned. Okay, that's what a good Alexander technique teacher will do for you.